And then this part is going to end up coming up and around and over and then down just like that. We're going to be using a lot of pie cuts in order to make this bracket. So what we need to do is... Frank Macaluso here. We are taking another look at the E31 850i with an S85 V10 swap. Today we're going to be taking a look at the exhaust. What we want to do today is I've already installed the headers. I want to take a look and install the V-band clamps down to the X pipe through 2 resonators and then out to the mufflers. I don't have mufflers yet because I want to make sure that I go with a really quiet muffler exhaust system because I have exhaust cutouts. Let's take a look and see what we got going on here today and evaluate what we can do to get this headers back exhaust at least fabricated. It won't be completely welded, but it will be fabricated. Anyway, hopefully this is going to look good, hopefully it's going to be good, and hopefully you learned something. Thanks guys, stay tuned. Today on the E31 exhaust, we are going to be installing the headers back exhaust, or call it a cat back. I do have the cats installed here for one main reason, because I kind of do care about emissions, believe it or not. And if I find that the exhaust is a little bit too quiet for my liking, I can always remove those cats. The plan is that I'm going to go with true dual 2.5-inch exhaust coming from each of the V-band clamps from here and here. It's going to be coming out to an X pipe. From the X pipe, it's going to be going to a dual resonator system where it's going to then split out again right at the diff. I'm going to zoom out here. Right at the diff, go through underneath the suspension and then out to over here, which this is one side. This is where the muffler will end up going. Now I want to have a quiet muffler, okay? I want a stock OEM quiet muffler to be installed onto this. Why? Because it's going to be loud anyway, but it's going to be loud when I want it to. Let me explain. These here are Doug's exhaust cutouts, rather. These are the DEC 250A, link in the description. These are very unique. Now, most exhaust cutouts are a butterfly valve that basically opens or closes. This here is a gate assembly that basically opens and shifts this whole plate out of the way, and it's over here when you have open exhaust. The benefits to doing this are numerous, in fact. First is that you get a completely sealed exhaust system. Right? When you close this, there is no exhaust being leaked through this gate coming through. So that's always a plus, right? Because exhaust leaks are always a huge issue when it comes to cutouts. The second thing that I really like about this is that when it's open, it's truly fully open. There's no valve in the middle to divert the flow or obstruct the flow. It is truly open, and I really enjoyed that. The downside to this is that it is generally a larger assembly, and I have to figure out a place to put this location, this whole assembly. So anyway, that's okay. I can handle that. Yeah, the way that this hooks up is pretty cool. Let me see if I can demonstrate this for you. Get this power. See if I can open it up. All right, there we go. Shifted the weight. And let me close it. Right. So it's momentary, right? So that means that if I'm pressing it and I stop, then it only goes partly way, and then it closes a little bit more, but then it closes all the way. Because all that's in here is a DC motor that operates or doesn't operate if I have the switch open or closed, I want to invent, and I plan on using an Arduino type interface that takes this and it turns a relay on and off with the touch of a button. So it's like a momentary open, close, and I don't have to hold the button in order to complete the motor's revolution to completely open the gate. So I'm planning something like that, and I want it to operate off of a stock E31 switch, so it looks like it belongs in there. with even if I can do a white silk screen type of, diagram there that shows what it's going to look like. I think that those final touches are really what's going to make this a very special integration. Talking about it always gets me excited because this ends up getting bypassing the mufflers, essentially, is what it's going to be doing. So when you talk about a straight pipe system on the S85, it sounds amazing. I mean, so the sound is awesome, no doubt about it. But I'm actually going to be keeping the cats, which is going to slightly muffle the sound, and it's going to be going to an X pipe with 2 resonators. The resonators are right there, 2.5-inch resonators. They're just fiberglass packed resonators, nothing special there, but it is going to help attenuate the sound just a tiny bit more and get that iconic S85 sound. And then with the exhaust cutouts operating, it's going to open up that sound and go straight out on the other exhaust tip. Each of these is going to be 2 exhaust tips. There's going to be one here and then one here. This one here is going to end up being integrated with the muffler. So the muffler is going to have one exhaust tip, and then the other exhaust tip is going to be the bypass pipe that's going to go through, and that's going to be right there. So there's going to be a dual exhaust system, of course, but each tip is going to end up having a different purpose whether or not I have my cutouts on or off. So hopefully it's going to be a really unique system. I'm going to design it from the ground up, and the tips are going to be custom. Everything about it is going to be custom, no doubt about it. But I wanted to make sure that I do this right. So it's a very shiny, very good quality exhaust system that I purchased. It was very expensive, and I'm going to piece it together, and hopefully I can get this thing not only to sound good, but look good. So let's take a look at pie cutting to cut our general pie cuts. I'm going to cut maybe about 8 to 10 of them, just so I have enough to fabricate my exhaust system. So here I have my 2.5-inch exhaust pipe, okay? I need to put this in a good location right on the table here. I need to mark my halfway point from the ground up on this 2.5-inch pipe. Guess what that is? That's right, it's 1 1/4. So I need to take 1 1/4 from here up and mark all the way across, and I need to do it on the other side as well. And then we're gonna end up going to the saw over there, and we're gonna be basically performing our cuts and turning the tube every 90 degrees, and it's gonna keep on cutting different pie cuts every time. So let's get this thing saddled up, let's start measuring, and let's start marking. So the pie cut angle that I'm going to end up going with on my bandsaw is going to be 4.5 degrees. Now this is a pretty handy protractor. It allows you to measure angles in many different ways, inside angles, outside angles. I love this thing. It's $5 on Amazon. You can find it by just basically Googling protractor. So anyway, I want to take this right here. I don't know if you can really see it or if it's focusing in on it, probably not, but I want to take and find 4.5 degrees or as close to it as I possibly can, because nothing is ever going to be dead on balls accurate with the type of equipment that I have, because it's relatively cheap stuff, but that's okay. So I got it dialed down to 4.5, right? And as a result, I need to make sure that this plate here is now angled at the same appropriate angle, such that when I shut it, it actually will cut at the specified angle that I wanted. So now that I've got this, and I got this angle here, you can see this angle here, mismatch between this piece of this plate and the actual protractor. If I just smack this guy in the direction that I want it to go, I don't want it to be too loose, so I have to be careful. There we go. It's getting really close now. Okay. Let's zoom in on that for you. All right. So now I am almost perfectly straight with this. So now I want to tighten this guy down. Put this guy back on. Right? And then when I do that, I can now start cutting my pie cuts. Let me show you why I marked the exhaust pipe. All right, so I've got my pipe here. I've got my 4.5 degrees of angle. So the point of doing the lines was really to identify the top and the bottom of the tube so that when I do my 4.5 degree cut, the first cut is obviously going to be at 4.5 degrees. No argument there. But when I turn this and then I move it over just a tiny bit, I don't know exactly how much I'm going to move it yet, that is also going to be cut at 4.5 degrees, which means I have a pie cut of a total of 9 degrees. 9-degree pie cuts are actually pretty standard. So in order to prevent any type of side warping or misalignment of the pie cuts, and I know that I'm getting the exact same top and bottom 4.5 degree cut every time, I got to make sure that the line is always going to be on top. So I'm going to do the line on top, make the cut, turn it over 180 degrees, line on top, make another cut. Then to keep on doing that, and the more you do it, you'll just keep on getting all these pie cuts at the same exact angle and the same distance. So that's kind of the idea. So you have to make your first initial cut, and then you got to make your subsequent cuts after that. So here's my pie cut. This is a 9-degree pie cut. And it looks pretty good. I'm actually quite impressed. The problem is it took 38 minutes to cut, and it wore away my bandsaw blade pretty significantly. So I don't know how I'm gonna be able to cut. I don't know, I need like 12 of them at least for this section of exhaust. And I don't really know exactly how I'm gonna do it because that was a brand new blade and the stainless steel kind of wore through that really fast. So I gotta figure something out. Anyway, cuts came out really good. I need at least 2 to get started with something. So hopefully I have enough blade left to cut the second one at least. All right, let's talk exhaust on the S85. Today we're gonna be routing it and installing it. So what I did was, basically I just, welded up the 2 resonators to the X-pipe, and it's gonna sit just like this. And it's gonna go up, 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 and I'm gonna nestle it right where it needs to be. I have 2 inputs right here, and I have 2 individual outputs from the headers. In between each of the headers and the input to the X-pipe is going to reside a flex pipe, and of course, here we go, and a V-band clamp. Got to remove the headers, right? Got to remove the headers. So the V-band clamp is going to be as close to the headers as possible, and the flex pipe is going to be as close to the X-pipe as possible. And what that allows me is let me turn this around. That allows me the maximum amount of flexibility and installation orientation that I can. If I have the flex pipe really close to the headers, then that means that I'm not going to get a lot of, like when I weld it up, it's going to actually warp a little bit and it might not fit exactly the way that I expect it to. So when I have the flex pipe further away, it allows this whole piece to then kind of rotate a little bit easier and meet the location of its original installation orientation. So what I need to do is basically prop this guy up into the underside of the car and then connect the dots from each of the headers over to the X-pipe. So let's do that. I think that for peace of mind, I really would like to get the drive shaft mock installed first, just to make sure that I'm not butting up too high against it. As much as I'd like a high exhaust, I also don't want it to be too high where it's interfering with something that hasn't yet been installed. Okay, finally, resonators, X-pipe, the driver's side is now tacked in with the V-band clamp and the flex pipe. I got the flex pipe installed on the passenger side. Now I need to connect the dots from here add a V-band to that, and then connect them to there, and then we can start working on the back to the mufflers. This is very, very exciting. I've wanted to do this for a very long time, and I am now living out my dream. All right, I apologize for skipping ahead, but I don't apologize because guess what? It is in and it is all tacked. It's still sitting on that jack stand, which is okay because I don't have any additional bracing right now. So if I let this thing go, it'll basically be hanging off of the headers, which will obviously probably break a lot of the tacks. Now, just so you guys know, my tacks are all MIG welded. They're stainless steel MIG welded, so I have the special helium gas with the stainless steel wire, but it is MIG tacked. I wanted to tack it because I'm not very good at tacking with TIG yet, so I want to get all the MIG tacking done, and then I'm going to take it out and put it on the bench, and then I'm going to grind all of the MIG tacks down, and then I'm going to TIG tack the entire exhaust. So I wanted to make sure that all of my interfaces between my pie cuts and my pipings were all solid and had good, had a really good interface around the entire circumference of each of those connections, because when you TIG, you don't want to have to make up for spaces. It's really difficult to do that. So I made sure that all of my spaces were all perfectly interfaced together so that when I tack, when I TIG weld, it actually go by relatively quickly. So now what I want to do is I want to start welding from the two resonators back, and each one of them come through this little piece here, this little etching. You can see like the little curve in the lower control arm, the spring perch that is. So I'm going to actually come out and I'm going to start to go through there. But I do want to get the mufflers installed, and each of the mufflers are going to go in here and here. Mufflers are over there. And I want to install the mufflers, at least position them with everything the way it is. This is all loose, so I got to be careful about where everything is positioned. But that is the idea. So these are gate valve Doug's DEC 250 cutouts, and I went with these because I think that they're a lot more reliable. And I decided that I think the best place to put these, we can't weld on this, okay? So I gotta be careful, or maybe tack it only, but I gotta be really careful. This is actually probably gonna end up being best suited to go right, nestled up right in this little area here. It allows this tube to go right into the muffler, and from there it can Y out into this. I think that probably may be my best bet. Then from there it can go right alongside the muffler and go out the tailpipe. So this is basically the exhaust cutoff here, and I made a small shorten this side here so that it'll fit nicely. And the exhaust cutoff valve will end up going right up in here, and this guy will end up getting welded. And then the position of the muffler is somewhat fluid to the point where I can actually move it up or down, but I gotta make sure that it lines up with the output on the rear skirt. So having said that, I do need to add another one of these pie cuts here and then tack weld this guy on, making sure that I'm doing it all the while I have my actual exhaust cutout installed so that I know where I can route my output tubing above the muffler. So let's tack this guy on with this on, and see how everything fits. Okay, the assembly is now tacked in. I still have, while I have the exhaust hangers over there installed, I still am suspending it because there's a little bit of lag due to the weight of this unsupported section. So I basically have this propped up to exactly where I want it. And having said that, it still does move. So you can see this whole thing does move really freely. It's close to stuff, but that's not that close. I mean, you can see I can fit my fingers in here on that side. Here's the muffler. Here's where the normal output is going to go, right into the muffler. And then this part is going to end up coming up and around and over and then down just like that. We're going to be using a lot of pie cuts in order to make this bracket. So what we need to do is I need to basically get this section welded up next, and then I can start working on this guy up and over. All right, so what I did here was I shortened this, I cut up here to allow for more room to exit and go there, and I think I got plenty of room now, and I added another pipe here that needs to get welded to the muffler. I positioned the muffler exactly where I want it. You can see with the bumper on, the output is going to be kind of like in the middle, but a little bit to the left, and that's fine because I'm actually going to use pie cuts and move it over. So that'll allow me to have room for the cutout exhaust. Is going to go right there. So yeah, I like that. I'm going to weld up the muffler, and I'm going to get a hanger on there, and then we're going to start routing from that exhaust output all the way across and down. All right, let's recap here, guys. I have now finished from the V-band clamp over. I added another mount right here. I have my Y pipe going to my cutoff that comes up and around, up and over the muffler. It comes down through a whole bunch of pie cuts, which are going to be a lot of fun to TIG weld, and then it's going to come out. Now I have this part, the actual muffler, going out to a 3-inch tube, and this is actually going to be flared out to another 3-inch tube. It's going to look something like this, right? Something like that. That's what it's going to end up looking like. So this thing can actually rotate a little bit depending on where I specifically want that piece in order to line up perfectly with the other one. But I do need to put the rear bumper on so I can see exactly how this is going to fit, because after I finished the mounts here, this mount here and then this one, everything fell a little bit more than what I had anticipated. So I want to make sure that the muffler is not too low and that it's sitting and nestled right in the cavity like it should be. So let's do a quick time lapse and see exactly how that sits. See here that I got the bumper roughly in place where it needs to be. I do need to trim out a little bit of bodywork, like right here along the muffler, and then maybe right up in here on the white centerpiece in order to clear this piece, which, as you can see, can kind of rotate up and down just to get that other piece lined up with the main one. And if I were to basically center this 3-inch tube, I'm going to end up getting a 2.5-inch to 3-inch reducer that allows me to TIG weld onto this nice flush look. And it's going to look kind of like that, I guess. Let's bring it down a little bit. Maybe it's a little too high. Something like that. And then center. So maybe it looks something like that. But the centerpiece, the center one, is actually going to be sticking out further than that one. So this is not the final configuration. This is not the final. I've got new chrome tips that are coming in that I'm going to weld on, and that's going to really help to make it all stand out. So the way that this is going to work is essentially when I want the car to be in a quiet mode, it's going to go through these factory 740i mufflers, which is going to be a really nice quiet ride, and all the exhaust is going to come out only on the outside ones. But when I turn the exhaust cutoffs on, it's going to open up the center ones, and you're probably going to get a little bit still coming out of the muffler, but most of it is going to be coming out of here, and it's going to sound really, really nice, and it's going to be a nice stock look. A lot different than what you see with the typical turn downs on exhaust cutouts. It's very easy to do, but I think it's a little bit of a cop-out. So I wanted to make something that was unique and complex and useful and functional at the same time. All right, our stainless steel exhaust tips came in today. We got a 3-inch and we got a 2.5-inch that goes to 3-inch. So from the outside world, it'll look like dual 3-inch exhaust. However, one will be 2.5-inch and the other one will be a 3-inch coming out of the muffler. So we're gonna weld these puppies on. We're gonna position them in places where I think they might go. We have to do the last exhaust hanger on the passenger side, and then we'll let everything sit, put the car down, and just see how it looks from the normal viewpoint from a person looking down on an exhaust. Hopefully it doesn't suck. Hopefully it doesn't suck. Okay, now that the exhaust is basically done, let's bring the car down and see how it looks from the top down. Now remember, there's still a lot of work left to do on this exhaust. I have to basically TIG weld every single one of those pie cuts. And when that happens, the exhaust is going to slightly change its location and position, so I have to make sure that that's good. Remember that the bumper too is just sitting there. There's no anchoring into the bumper yet, and I know there's a weather stripping seal that goes on the top between the bumper and the tailgate portion for the taillights. So it's not exactly where it's going to live, but I think that the exhaust tips are very close to where I think they're going to end up residing full time. So let's bring it down and let's see how it looks. Let's take a look here. Okay, from the top down, not bad at all. I'm very happy with it. Let's take another picture here. You can see the driver's side is pretty straight relative to each other. You can kind of see the neck on the 2.5 inch over there, which is fine. I don't care about that. And the same thing on this side. You can kind of see the neck a little bit over there. But this is also pretty parallel as well. And remember that, see this gap here? The bumper needs to be sitting up. So if I were to push it up, you kind of would see that, you know, there's going to be space. And it kind of moves too, watch. I'm not actually going to kick it because of the tacks. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this, man. I mean, it looks pretty mean. Looks pretty good. And it's functional, and the cutouts are going to be awesome. Cutouts are going to be functional. They're going to work. It's a cool feature to have in your car, to have the exhaust cutouts, but to have them like this is pretty cool, man. I'm pretty happy with it. So that's just about does it for me today on the E31 S85. Took a while for me to get to this point. This exhaust was gonna be a hard one. I knew it was gonna be a difficult video, but I'm glad that I was able to complete it and then give it to you. We might do another video to finish up the exhaust, take it down, weld it all up, and reinstall, but that's not gonna be for a while. Don't know what I'm gonna be doing next, but I do know that I need the lift for other projects. So for now, the E31 will end up going into that spot over there while we start doing some S85 work. All right, so you guys want to stand by, stay tuned, comment, like, subscribe. My name is Frank Macaluso from Garageaholic, and I am out of here. Later.